and I look over. This is like in the pregame warmups, right? So before you have your shoulder pads and jersey on or your helmet, any of that stuff. And so it's like 2 hours before the game, hour, 45 minutes, whatever, right? Stoutland is in the end zone with Landon Dickerson and Mailata, and they're doing combo blocks.
Yeah.
And I've seen them do that with the inactive guys before, with like the practice squad guys before. But I can't remember if Brady asked me if that was normal or not, but or maybe I just said, I'm like, dude, I've never seen that.
All right, here's an ad read from the Butter King. Thanks to BetMGM and all you football fans. I want you to picture something. You bet your favorite player's first touchdown score, but he throws a block to send a teammate into the end zone. And you lose your bet, right? Wrong! With BetMGM's second chance promotion, you'll get your stake back if your first TD scores second. Bet on any pro football player to score the first TD of the game. If you're right, you win. If your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. Keep that in mind next time you throw in a first TD score. Bet with BetMGM. Happy hunting.
What is up? Beau Allen here, joined by longtime NFL offensive lineman, current CBS analyst, Ross Tucker. Ross, thanks for joining us, man.
Of course, dude. It was great to see you this past weekend. Always great to hang and fired up, man. I love talking ball with you.
I know. It's fun, man. You get some, former football players that missed the game that are retired now and work in the media sphere. It's like, it's just easy to hang out,
It's funny because earlier in the season, I guess on Chris's show or, the Monday show, you guys gave me props. And I couldn't tell.
You sure did.
On the social video, I couldn't tell who all was in the room or whatever. I just saw Chris and I thought, okay, they're probably giving me props because I talk OLine DLine. But the thing you referenced wasn't even OLine DLine.
Yeah,
so
I have
nice. Because I know you guys like that.
Bro, we fucking love you. Here, pull that clip up, Cowboy. Let's show everyone just so they're sure. We have a lot of love for you on the Greenlight podcast. Here's Chris Long gassing you up, Ross.
Best seat, anybody who listens to Ross Tucker. I know we talk a lot about, and I hope Ross Tucker hears this so he can get his flowers, but we see you, bro. We hear you. If you watch ball and you pay attention to ball, there's going to be at least 10 to 15 times in a game, if Ross Tucker's doing the game as a color analyst, where you're like, yeah, I remember that last week. It's just like when the guy from the Titans, 44 Brown, lays off a receiver in the end zone, and he's like, yeah, last week that happened. He's gunshot because he got called for unnecessary roughness against the Vikings.
Said that right away.
He just threads the needles. Before you can get the thought out, he knows it, and obviously played a long time. But we talk a lot about color analysts in this game. We talk about Tom Brady. We talk about Greg Olsen. I put him up there with those guys. If Ross Tucker was a damn Hall of Fame quarterback, they'd be giving him $500 million to call games. He's that guy. I love Ross Tucker. Nice. So STL Memorial to my dog, Ross Tucker.
There you go, baby. We got
what
a lot.
What does the last thing mean at the end? STL Memorial.
We do. So that's a St. Louis Memorial. We do different awards on our Monday show, and that's one that we give out for a small media market game because Chris was in St. Louis for so long. So someone that's performing really well but flying under the radar.
Oh, no, I like that. I like that. It's funny because being on, you and I were talking about this over the weekend, but being on the sixth crew,
yep.
I do a lot of AFC South. Yeah. I did get a chance to do a couple Raiders, a couple Browns. I think most people probably know how it works in terms of, Tony Romo, for CBS at least, Tony Romo and Jim Nantz do whatever game is going to be seen by the most people, right? And then I do most weeks whatever's going to be seen by the least amount of people, but that it doesn't change anything for me. I mean, because I'm sure when I played in Buffalo and certain places that we were on that quite a bit, and to the people that are watching that is their game. That is their team. That is their game. But it is funny, every once in a while, this happened a couple times where the big game ends and then they join us in progress. Because I can always tell, dude, I'll get this happened last year, actually. I did Ravens Cardinals, and it was a late game. There's only 2 late games. And somehow the Tony Romo, Jim Nantz game ended before us. So I probably got like 5 to 7 text messages during the game from people that are like Ravens fans or whatever. And then with like a minute and a half left, we get joined by everybody. And I don't know how many people it is when we get joined, but like everybody. I looked at my phone after the game. It's like 67 text messages. Like, you don't realize how big the NFL is calling games until everybody's TV set goes to your game. Or like this year, I did Patriots Chargers for NFL Network.
Yep.
So I'd never done like a standalone game before when it's the only game on. And even NFL Network, I don't know how many people get NFL Network or not, but like that was like 10x what a normal game is, just in terms of Twitter and emails and people texting me. It like I can only imagine. I mean, people are probably sick of it now that they don't do it, but like I can only imagine like Romo and Collinsworth and those guys that do standalone games every week. It's crazy.
It's wild. Well, I'm happy that you got a lot of love at the Greenlight Pod. I'm happy you're getting some shine from some of those other situations too, man. It's good to be the star of the show. You deserve it,
Well, I love that you guys go over every game, and I love that I like that you guys, I will say I think, and there's not a knock on anybody. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Beau.
Yeah, hit me.
You know how for playoff games, Jay Feely is with Romo and Nantz as like a kicking special teams analyst?
Yeah. Yep.
I've said for a long time that really all these booths with quarterbacks or Collinsworth as a receiver, I think those guys do a great job of trying to understand line play. It's really hard. It's really, if you never did it, it's
you don't
really
get it
hard.
unless you've been down there in the muck, man.
Yeah, I almost feel like they could all use someone like you or me. It only might be like 7 or 8 times a game where it's like, no, like that was a club, that was a bull pull.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean? Or like, no, that wasn't a good move, actually. The center, like Rams, Eagles. Can you believe those last 2 plays?
Yeah, with Jalen
where
Carter.
The center and right guard weren't on the same page.
Yep.
And they like let Jalen Carter go. Like right now, all I can think about the last few days is what must be going through the Rams O-line coach's head. Like, can you imagine? Dude, I can't tell. The first one, it looked to me like the right guard, Dotson, it was slide left.
Yep.
Because the center was like this and the right guard stepped down.
Yeah.
But then the right guard leaves and the center's like, oh, crap, sack.
Yep.
And the next play, I think, was slide to Jalen. But the right guard again, Dotson, he's like vacating space and sliding to nowhere.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, my God. Like, he's their best player.
Critical.
How do you not block
moment,
him the last
too.
2 plays of the game?
Yeah. And I actually, someone tweeted at me today kind of asking about that situation. And I was fortunate enough to be watching that game with Kelsey and John Sullivan, who played center in the NFL for a long time. I played against him like 2 or 3 different times. Anyway, the general consensus amongst the finest interior linemen in the history of the NFL, the 3 of us, is that I think like they thought there was some sort of fire zone on or some sort of stunt blitz. Like Fangio blitzes a lot. And I think especially on the second one, like Jalen did a really good job of making it seem like he was going to cross the center's face and then essentially countering back. And I think, the center thought he had guard help there. He didn't, because the guard, like exactly what you're saying, was kicking out. But it's like people don't understand the tiny minutia involved with interior offensive and defensive line play and how something as small as like missing your strike or, poor footwork on a reach block or something like that, it can just screw you for the entire down. So I agree with you, man. There needs to be like how they have like the ref specialists and things like that. Every booth has that. Like we need an OLine DLine. We need like a lineman specialist, just for every game.
2 things on that. One is my big takeaway from those last couple plays. Jalen Carter is crazy smart.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people don't think. Like I always like to joke that like D linemen are the dumbest guys on the field.
You're not wrong, bro.
because they don't have to they don't really have to know a lot of the things that other people need to know schematically. It's usually like line up in this gap and then go to this gap or whatever, right? Yeah. But understanding blocking schemes, understanding how people are trying to block you, and being able to kind of trick them like they did like he did those last couple plays, that's huge.
Yeah.
And to your point, not this year. This year I was with Jay Feely, but last year I was with Jason McCourty for a few games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like convinced that might be the ideal booth, is to have like a receiver or DB and then an O lineman or D lineman on the other side, right? Because like we would just ask each other questions all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime we were looking at the high end zone camera or like the sky cam or the pit framing, it was O-line. Like I took it. Anytime it was a receiver ISO or the all 22, he took it. But I would be like, dude, how is he get that open? Like how is that even possible?
Yeah.
You know? And then he would conversely say to me sometimes, like a play would happen and he'd be like, why aren't they doubling him? I'm like, well, good question. But if you double him every time, then, but it's like, it was cool to like, they were like legit. It wasn't like for TV questions. It was,
Right.
He was asking me genuine questions and back and forth. And I always think if he's asking it, then nobody listening probably knows, other than like you guys, you know what I mean? So it's perfect.
Well, it's cool too, because like you take someone like me or you, like when I'm watching football, I'm watching the O-line and the D-line, you know what I mean? And everyone else, like your average fan is probably watching the ball, you know what I mean? But like, I've just been trained my entire life to watch the interior of the offensive line, the interior of the defensive line. And so it's perfect to have a counterpart like, McCourty, who's been trained to watch wide receivers and everything pre-snap involved with that. And it just makes for a perfect little duo. You guys just fill in for each other. It's a cool thing, but listen, man, O-line D-line play, I think, is still neglected and underappreciated in the NFL. So,
well, it's funny because everybody knows, like, other than quarterback, either O-line or D-line is the next most important position group.
Yeah.
Yet they still don't really understand it that much. I always say it's D-line, and I'll tell you why. You can get by with an average O-line. What you can't have is a bad O-line, right? Like if you have 5 average guys, you might be okay. And honestly, you're probably better off having 5 average guys than having 3 studs and 2 duds. You really are.
Because those guys are going to get
almost
exposed.
only as good as like your worst guy. Whereas D-line, you really got to have some dudes. Like if you have all average guys, like that's fine, but you're going to have some issues, I think. I think, like if I was drafting, my first round picks would be way more likely to be defensive linemen than offensive linemen. I guess I feel like I could find, guys in the 3rd through 6th round on O-line that'll get the job done just fine. Whereas D linemen, like, and obviously no offense to you, Beau, but like for the most part, and I'm undrafted, but for the most part, like most of like the freak show stud D linemen, they go in the 1st round. Like it's like if you're getting a guy later than that, then like their technique is terrible or their effort or something, and then you're figuring out how to get them to play better.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, man, because I'm probably taking the Harbaugh approach and I'm going O-line. It's interesting that you think D-line is the most important position. As a defensive lineman, I think it's O-line. Like if you look at, like, the Eagles is a very convenient example. I think they have the best offensive line in the NFL. And that's what spurred them to, these long runs last week from Jalen and Saquon. And I think it's the biggest strength of their team. And I think that's what's going to, ride them through the playoffs. Like if you have a bad O-line, like you can't get anything done offensively. You're not going to be able to run the ball. Your quarterback's not going to have time to dish the ball downfield. It's really.
But they don't have to be. But they don't have to be great. They just have to be good enough.
They just have to be
you don't
not
have to
terrible.
have like Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
You just can't have guys that you're looking to replace. You know what I mean? Like you can get by with solid guys. I was thinking about this. Tell me what you think of it. Now I'm older than you, but I was looking at the Eagles O-line on Sunday, and I really think they're probably the most physically gifted offensive line of all time. Like, I don't know how many of those guys.
All time.
Well, you've seen a decent amount of them in person, I guess. You've seen a bunch of them. Like, Mailata's like 370 probably. with like abs and no fat.
Yeah.
Landon's 355, 360. I've seen him do some
He's bubbling.
crazy athletic things.
I saw a video of him doing the worm. That was incredible.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I remember just being like, what the fuck?
Lane Johnson showed me that video. I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap. Juergens is a different kind of freak show. He's more like a Jason Kelsey freak show. You know what I mean?
Moved
Like
very well,
smaller, but super athletic and whatever. Becton's 345 and moves well. And then Lane is like, has always been a freak, like 6'6", 335. They have 5 legitimate athletic phenoms, height, weight, speed phenoms. I know there's been like the Cowboys O-line of the 90s and stuff, but like if you just went like height, weight, speed, athleticism ratio, I don't think there's ever been a more physically gifted O-line that I can think of.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I think it's a wealth of great players on that offensive line, but also like they have an unbelievable O-line coach. I love Stout. I'm a huge fan of Jeff Stoutland. I'll always love him because he put me in at fullback in 2016 in an HBO package, they called it. It slowly got morphed into being called like the Honey Bobo package. But Stout like fought to have me play goal line fullback because I was grinding on scout team. And he made it like so much fun for me. You know what I mean? Like when you're a defensive tackle, if you even have the slimmest opportunity to touch the ball on offense, it is like, I will die for you. But he's a great coach, man. Like he is unbelievable. And I know Kelsey's talked about him a lot. All those guys. You see Jordan say he's part of Jeff Stoutland University. He's a fucking awesome coach. And that helps too, especially when you have freaks like those guys to mold.
So you'll appreciate this. 2 weeks ago, I was calling Packers and Eagles in the booth with Tom McCarthy, the voice of the Phillies, who was my partner for CBS TV. And I'm down on the field before the game. And it just so this is not like a name drop. But it just so happens I'm saying hello to former teammate Tom Brady, right?
Yep.
Because he's doing the game for TV. And I look over. This is like in the pre-game warm-ups, right? So before you have your shoulder pads and jersey on or your helmet, any of that stuff. And so it's like 2 hours before the game, hour, 45 minutes, whatever, right? Stoutland is in the end zone with Landon Dickerson and Mailata, and they're doing combo blocks.
Yeah.
And I've seen them do that with the inactive guys before, with like the practice squad guys before. But I can't remember if Brady asked me if that was normal or not. Or maybe I just said, I'm like, dude, I've never seen that. Like 2 Pro Bowl guys, 2 hours before the game.
Chest pad too, and like he's got a lot of energy. Like they'll get up there and thump him. You know what I mean? Like it's fun to see.
But like 2 hours before the game, 2 Pro Bowlers are out there in the playoffs after they've been doing this for 27 weeks, maybe 26 weeks, working on their combo block. Like, I'm like, what is going on right now? That is not normal.
Yeah. Stout gets those guys absolutely dialed. I mean, there's 2, Lane and Mailata were second team All-Pro, and I think that's bullshit, frankly, that Lane wasn't a first team All-Pro. We don't need to get a ton into that, but that just speaks to I think I remember seeing a stat. I can't remember exactly what it was that Stouts had a All-Pro O-lineman or a Pro Bowl O-lineman for the last like 15 years or something like that. And it's incredible, man.
You know what's crazy about that too is when Chip Kelly hired him from Alabama, I don't think he had ever coached in the pros before.
No, correct. Yep.
I don't think he'd ever, which makes it even more impressive. And it's funny because like there was a couple years when he was at Alabama. I didn't even know who he was. I didn't even know he was at Alabama, right? And I can't remember if it was like Mark Ingram or Henry or whoever, but there were a couple years when I thought, you know who the real Heisman is? Alabama's offensive line. Yeah. like Alabama's offensive line should win the Heisman, not like any of their skill guys.
Yeah. I feel that way a little bit about, maybe the running back for the Eagles isn't all that good. Maybe it's all just the offensive line,
It's such a weird dynamic because it feels like, Beau, they get like 2 yards, -1, 6 to 70.
Yeah.
Like it's like he had 2 touchdowns over 60 yards. People are like, oh, he averaged 7.6 yards per carry. I'm like, wait, he had 2 touchdowns that were like 140 yards. 7.6 yards a carry doesn't sound that good to me if you took 2 to the house like that.
I was being facetious. I think Saquon's a freak, but it helps when you have that O-line that we talked about. This episode of the Green Light Podcast is brought to you by Daya Pizza, featuring dairy-free cheese now made from Daya Oat Cream Blend. Let's talk about FOMO, the fear of missing dairy. It's real. The Butter King has certainly had it. I love dairy. When you hear about dairy-free cheese, you get a little skeptical, especially if you love normal cheese like me. I did play football in Wisconsin after all. But Daya set out to create the ooeyest, gooeyest, dairy-free cheese blend pizza there is with zero trade-offs. Daya's pizzas are dairy-free and still deliver the rich, savory taste and total satisfaction that everyone craves and demands when looking for frozen pizza. Daya's pizzas hit all the marks. Thin, crispy, flavorful toppings, including meatless options that taste meaty and cheese that's rich, stretchy, and melts just like dairy. All thanks to the innovative Daya Oat Cream Blend. The Butter King loves it. Daya has cured my FOMO, and you don't have to commit to a fully dairy-free lifestyle to enjoy it. Make your next pizza night FOMO-free with Daya. To learn more about Daya, please visit www.dayafoods.com. Also check them out on socials, Instagram and TikTok, or visit any major retailer across the U.S., including Whole Foods, Kroger, and Walmart. FOMO be gone. So Ross and I were hanging out on Saturday last week, the divisional round, Chiefs versus Texans. Looking ahead to the Chiefs versus the Bills at Arrowhead, I feel like this game has almost seemed inevitable, like all season. You know what I mean? Mahomes and Josh Allen, like you just feel like there's always something there. Like, what are you most excited about the AFC matchup?
Well, a lot. And I should say, in full transparency, the Bills were like easily my favorite team I played for.
Yeah, you sound like Chris.
Out of the five.
Chris is a Bills, like has been pushing the Bills all year. He's obsessed with Josh Allen. They're an easy team to root for. But you obviously
Josh Allen's my favorite player in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he is like, and I think like I was talking about this on the Fantasy Feast podcast. It's my fantasy show.
Nice plug, Ross. Nice plug. Love
like that.
Fantasy Feast podcast. Ross Tucker.
I love the Josh Allen rushing yards over prop. Dude.
Yeah.
This is like this. It's now or never.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and he's almost unstoppable running the football. He's like a 250-pound running back.
Yep.
It's like that first drive for Notre Dame against Ohio State, except Josh Allen's like faster and bigger than Riley Leonard
and tough as hell.
So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see a team play the Chiefs and not make critical mistakes.
Yeah.
The Bills haven't done that all year. They've been awesome with turnover ratio. I'd like to see that game be a clean game. You know, like I'd like to see somebody not take some of the dumb sacks and penalties that the Texans did. Like we were talking with him and I was joking, like you do a Chiefs playoff game and every third down, I said to Kevin Harlan, probably looking at Kelsey here. And then like Mahomes throws it to him and he catches him. Like what is happening in the world that you're playing a playoff game against the Chiefs and you let Travis Kelsey be the guy that beats you? But even just talking before the game with some Texans coaches, they're like, listen, dude, if you play zone, I think it's because like his basketball background that he's just so good at like he's like a shooter finding the space, you know, to get his three off. Like Kelsey's so good, his spatial awareness of being able to find that space against zone. I wouldn't play zone. I mean, I would play. I would have somebody spy Mahomes, but then I would play man on Travis. He can still beat him, but to me, the way I look at it, if you play zone, you're definitely going to get beat. Like he's definitely going to find the hole, and Mahomes is going to hit him. If you play man, you have a chance.
Yeah.
You have a chance in that situation. So I'm curious to see how the Bills do that. The running of Josh Allen, not making the mistakes. I mean, to me, oh, by the way, the Bills kind of have a beastly O-line. Like they have a sneaky – I was watching some clips of their right tackle, Spencer Brown.
He's good.
He was kicking ass on Sunday. You know, the second half of that game, it was almost like the Bills ran it more effectively than the Ravens did. You know, the Bills kind of they can actually really run the rock.
They're really balanced offensively, man. Like good tight ends. They have, they've got chain movers on the outside. Pretty good run game. Good O-line. I mean, I'm excited to see Chris Jones. Like sometimes he lines up on the edge, in Spags' defense against the right tackle sprint.
Oh,
and you just
mentioned he got a sweet sack against Houston doing that.
He did. And then also Creed Humphrey, I think, is he's a good center. Like I think he might be the best center in the NFL right now. And like Daquan Jones, a big boy who for the Bills, he doesn't get a ton of love. He's really good. Jordan Phillips, really good. And then Ed Oliver, like the interior offensive line for the Chiefs versus the defensive line for the Bills is going to be a fun matchup for me personally to watch because, that's my bread and butter. Real quick, we only have a couple minutes left, Ross. Appreciate all of your time, of course, but let's talk NFC Championship game. A little bit of an Eagles homer here from my time in Philly, but, divisional matchup between the Commies and the Eagles on Sunday for the NFC Championship. What are you looking forward to in that game?
Well, first of all, I'm looking forward to being there. I'll be on the sideline for Westwood 1. Thank goodness. I mean, you want to talk about stress, Beau. That afternoon, my Westwood 1 boss texted and said, if the Eagles win, you'll be in Philly.
Yeah.
If they lose, I don't know if you're going to LA or KC. I was like, you guys better win. Like,
go Birds.
I did not want to have to fly LA or connect to Kansas City. So those guys don't realize they were playing for my life schedule and travel on Sunday. But, it's so crazy how talented the Eagles are that their passing game is giving them very, very little, and they're still winning.
Yeah,
it's like incredible. I think the Hurts knee thing and how bad it is or isn't is a huge factor because – if they don't have to worry about him on the design runs, think about all those runs like where they fake the sweep with Saquon one way and then Hurts takes it the other, or any of the zone read stuff. If they can just sell out for Saquon, which by the way is what I would do until Hurts proves he can run, that's going to be a major, major factor in the game. I still think that the Eagles will try to run it. It's interesting. I think Payne and Allen are both banged up because I'm watching them and they look fine, but they don't look like they normally do. They're not out there like killing people. Like they're not getting off blocks the same way. I think they both might be banged up. Allen's trying to come back from a torn pec.
Yeah.
That's tough in the season like that. So I would expect the Eagles, even though those are like their big name defensive guys, I would still attack them and make sure those guys can hold up.
And Frankie Louvu is a thumper too.
Love that dude.
Yeah.
Love Sainris still.
Yeah.
I mean, any 5'9" guy that's that good in the NFL, I love that. How many times was he told he's too small and he's out there making plays, lighting people up? It's awesome.
Yeah, he's having a good year. And Dan Quinn, obviously defensive mind there. I'm sure he's got a good plan for the Eagles offense. Okay, one final question for you. Ross Tucker, big beer guy. We talked a little bit about some of your favorite IPAs. You can only drink one IPA, you can only drink one beer for the rest of your life. What are you going with?
Ooh. Oh, that is tough because it's rest of my life.
Rest of your life.
And only one. So if it's a light beer, it would be Labatt Blue Light, which, yes, is my sponsor, but it's also delicious.
Smart.
And if it's an IPA, it's Julius from Treehouse, which is delicious. I'm wondering if there's I'm trying to think if there's a way I can split the middle, almost like a all day IPA,
Good. Yeah.
or like a Sweetwater 420. I'm thinking like a Sweetwater 420 because Julius, you can only have so many of those.
Yeah.
And then Labatt Blue Light I love, but
I mean, I could have a lot of Labatt. I'm gonna have some of those this weekend. Maybe it's doing dry January, but that's coming to an end quickly. And I'm excited. Well, shit, Ross, thanks a lot for your time, man. Always appreciate talking ball with you, especially OLine DLine play, and you got some incredible insights into the game, man. So appreciate having you here on a Wednesday. I think we're calling this a Wednesday roundup for GLP, and would love to have you back sometime.
I love it. My pleasure, dude. Great hanging this weekend. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother.